Welcome to Tennessee This Week. Before we get into the issues, we want to introduce our panel here. Cortney Piper, a political contributor. Craig Griffith, our healthcare analyst, and Michael Covington, our industrial consultant. First things first, we saw this past week where the Knox County GOP was endorsing people in the local elections. I don't know if the Knox County Democratic Party was doing the same thing, but your thoughts on having, I don't know, the GOP endorsing non-political races and those not doing it. And will it help? Won't it help? Cortney, we'll start with you.
Well, Don, to answer your question, the Knox County Democratic Party said they would not be endorsing in these races because they're nonpartisan.
Right.
Nobody runs with an R or a D by their name. And it's just a very curious strategy by the Republican Party to endorse in city races when we know the city is bright blue. It's almost giving a gift to their opponent. So it didn't work 2 years ago when they did it. I don't know what the thinking behind doing it again was.
Craig, Michael?
Well, I think that there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, political parties can appoint, and endorse whoever they would like. These are nonpartisan elections, but most people know the party history of all the candidates. So it seems like they're just trying to, promote that party distinction. And being a political party does give you some of the voters some aspect as to what their policies are and their principles are. We moved to partisan elections on the school board, and we seem to have a pretty solid division on the school board between the Republican bloc and the Democratic bloc. I don't know if it's improved the decision making at all, but I don't really think this will have much of an impact. As Cortney pointed out, the city is tending to be voting Democratic, and the Democrats aren't going to endorse. So I think it'll be up to the candidate that GOTV gets out their vote to win in November.
The interesting thing about these endorsements, though, is apparently they came with a check, because we know that Lynn Fugate, who's a current city council person and is also up for re-election, gave the money back. So if that tells you anything about how the candidates are feeling about this endorsement, it should speak volumes.
Well, quite honestly, I think it's advantaged Democrats. It's a nonpartisan race, and Knoxville is as blue can be. Save for the orange for the Tennessee Vols, everything in Knoxville would be. So endorsing GOP candidates just reminds Democrats in the city of Knoxville that the Knox County Republican Party wants you to vote for a Republican. So the few people that will go to the polls, they're going to vote for Democrats. So I think this is much ado about nothing. They would have been better off not doing this.
On that issue, about a week ago, Gloria Johnson announced that she's going to run for U.S. Senate, and then we now understand that Seema Singh is going to try to take her seat. I don't know a lot about her. I'm curious right now. I think she's the only person that's put her hat in the ring, so to speak. Would she obviously be the leading candidate because she's the only candidate right now? But is there someone out there that could win this? Is she the right person for this job? Has her past, how she's referred to herself, is that going to hurt her, help her?
Well, as Michael just said, she's not orange, but she is Democrat. So, and that is a Democratic district. It was specially created by the gerrymanders in the state house to eliminate Gloria Johnson from the state house. They redrew the district lines and drew Gloria's house out of it in her old district. So she fooled them and moved into the new district and was reelected and became part of the Tennessee 3. So we'll see. And in terms of Seema, it's too early to tell. We'll have to see who else runs. I assume there'll be other people that will get into that race. But we'll see where she stands on the various issues that are confronting the state legislature. But if she is elected as a Democrat to the state legislature, she'll be one of the lone wolves crying out in the dark because the Republicans have a supermajority in Nashville, and I don't see that changing.
Seema Singh is a really fantastic candidate for the House of Representatives because she's a current city council person. This district is fully in the city. So she's got name recognition and she knows how to run a campaign. And she also has an extraordinarily strong voice and a reputation for, exactly like Gloria, advocating for her constituents. So I think she'll be a fantastic candidate. I have not heard of anybody else being interested in that seat. So we'll see how this one unfolds.
I wonder how she will deal with not really having a voice in Nashville because, as Courtney was saying, supermajorities are super. And the super minority, they get very little time at the mic and their ideas are not really well received. And I sometimes wonder if Seema were to prevail, how she'll feel about not really being recognized.
All right, well, what we're going to do is take a quick break. We've got several more issues that we want to get into, and we will do that when we come back. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. Taping this Thursday night. As of right now, there is no deal. Congress has not passed a budget. So as of September 30th, that's the end of the fiscal year for 2023. If Congress does not pass the 12 appropriation bills or pass a continuing resolution by then, all non-essential services, agencies, employees will not be getting paid, will not be going to work. I know that Congressman Burchett is out there saying, hey, I won't take a salary. He's also tweeted the deadline to fund the government comes around the same time every year. Let's balance a budget, do it right by the Americans that sent us here. So that's out there. I'm curious about its impact on East Tennessee if this doesn't happen in time. And will Congress let it go a few days, maybe something like that, but not let it go, say, a month or two, or will it get done before that? So there are a lot of questions out there if we want to address that. Craig, do you want to start with that?
Well, there's thousands of federal workers in East Tennessee that would be impacted by this. Federal workers, federal contract workers, if they're non-essential, they would go home without pay. But of course, after the last shutdown in 2019 under former President Trump, the Congress passed a law that ensured that federal employees would get their pay back that they lost during any shutdown. So short-term pain, but in the end, the long-term, they would receive their wages that they didn't get. But it also leads to inconvenience. Last shutdown, 400 or 500 Border Patrol agents were delayed in being hired, and we're worried about the southern border. Same thing may happen in hiring new law enforcement officers this time. Citizens will be impacted by they not being able to get passports or visas. So as I pointed out last week, I'm detecting a disturbing trend where, yes, let's just go ahead and shut it down. Obviously, that's the reason that I think that the people in Speaker McCarthy can't come up with the magic number of 217 people to vote for his budget plans, and that's not any way to do business. And I'll agree with Congressman Burchett that they shouldn't go home. They should be working around the clock, both the House and the Senate, to come up with a plan. Their job is to pass a budget, and they're not doing their job. So this is the way we need to work and get it done before it shuts down on the 30th. Having a shutdown in essence is the easy way out. You can go home to your constituents and say, I didn't vote for a continuing resolution, or I didn't vote for this woke Pentagon funding, and throw up your hands and say, I did everything I could, while other people are wreaking the pain of that decision. So yes, Congress should stay in session around the clock and get this done.
Michael.
Absolutely. A government shutdown should not be an option. In East Tennessee alone, the Department of Energy supports 43,000 full-time jobs. That's 43,000 Tennesseans that will go home without a paycheck if the government shuts down. And if you're just living paycheck to paycheck, if you don't have a lot of savings, getting your money recouped isn't going to help you. So, our elected officials should feel a sense of responsibility and duty to make a deal and get this done and work it out so the government does not shut down. It shouldn't be on the table as an option.
Michael.
Leaving Washington, D.C. and going back to your district is a total and complete abdication of responsibility. The House of Representatives, they have the checkbook. They're responsible for the budget. For them to leave and not resolve this issue is they're not doing their job. That's their responsibility. How on earth could they believe that that makes sense? So I have all the support for Tim Burchett and his stance, but the bottom line is Congress as a whole needs to roll their sleeves up and get their job done in Washington. That's their job. So I can't imagine why there would be any justification for them leaving when this is not being taken care of.
If it's being held up by a few people and compared to like a jury where, I don't know, the majority sees the evidence one way, but there's two people in that room that see it differently, how do those people then convince the other people to say, let's get it done, when you have people that believe a certain way? I mean, they're not just doing, say, hey, I'm just going to be a pain. Now, there might be some of that, but let's just say someone just really believes a certain way about how money should be spent. How do you get them to go over there so you can get those votes?
Well, you know what the worst four-letter word in Washington is? Compromise. Nobody wants to compromise anymore.
Thank you, because I was getting worried there for a second.
Yeah, and they, it's all a matter of being primaried. People going back to their districts and say, I voted on this compromise to keep the government open. And depending on where you are, a person on your left says that you didn't do your job and makes you fight a primary battle, or a person on your right says you weren't conservative enough, so I'm going to fight you in the primary. And, I don't really think that there's any desire amongst a small group of people, but the majorities are so slim now that all it takes is a small group of people. Right. Or in the case of the Senate, it only takes one senator to stop our military promotions from being heard on the Senate floor. So, that's the way our government was set up. But, I don't see any desire amongst a small but vocal but also critical voting bloc, to come up with a compromise that addresses the issue, that, as Michael says, gets the job done.
And Don, I would reject the premise that there is any lawmaker in Washington, D.C. that has a deeply seated belief about how money should be spent, has a moral or ethical just calling as to how money should be spent, and they cannot compromise on it. This is all about power and grandstanding. If there's a small group of people that they know that they have the power to hold up a decision to get a little bit of what they want, they will do it. I don't believe for one second that there are congresspeople in Washington, D.C. that have deeply seated beliefs how money should and should not be spent. They are opportunists, and they're taking an opportunity to get other things that they want. And unfortunately, it comes at the expense of everyday Americans.
I know that he's not in the House, but our one of our senators, Bill Hagerty, came out and he's calling out President Biden for demanding that legislation to keep government open include a provision that defunds immigration, customs enforcement, or ICE, and reallocates a lot of that money to resettle illegal immigrants. So he pulled something from page 51 and said, look, it's right in here. The president saying, hey, I want to be able to reallocate that money. Going back to something that Craig said, instead of putting more Border Patrol agents out there, we want to use it for settling immigrants. So someone could see that and say, well, this is why I'm not, if this is going to be in there, I'm not going to pass it.
And that's not a reason to send thousands of Americans home without a paycheck. It just isn't. And look, if we really want to talk about immigration, these are all band-aids. What really needs to happen is comprehensive immigration reform. That's what needs to happen. These issues should not be what's holding up government from functioning and running.
Well, at least in his case, I guess he feels that that's something that he can't support anyway. But again, that's just one person having a news conference a few days ago and telling us that. All right, let's take another break. When we come back, we'll get into some more issues here on Tennessee This Week. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. We want to now talk about rental prices, housing prices. According to the East Tennessee Realtors' latest market pulse report, apartment rents went up 6% last year to this year, expected to go up 5% from this year to next year. This has led people to form a tenants union type thing, a group. People are asking the city council, asking leaders to come help them. The question is it time to maybe set up a law that would cap prices, or should we just allow the market to set the price and it is how it is?
It's time to recognize that people are really strapped. And there was one woman who was quoted in a Knox News article as saying her rent used to be $880 and her landlord just raised it to almost $1,400. So, rent prices are getting out of control. They're rising at an unsustainable rate. And, my concern is if you let the free hand of the market do its thing, when it's going to pull back when people can't afford to pay their rents, and we're going to have a larger crisis on our hands. So what this tells me is something needs to be done. The conversation needs to be had. And we can't just pretend like this rise in renting costs or renting rates isn't a problem, because it's a problem for a lot of Knoxvillians.
Well, it's the law of supply and demand, I think. As many of these apartment units are being sold, the new owners see that they can charge more than the old owners did. And I think Knoxville is in an unusual situation because there's always going to be a demand for apartments because of the 30,000 students that come here every year to go to school. That's a wrench in the whole market situation, because many of them aren't working to pay that rent. Their parents are funding their college education and their rooms and boards. And I'm sure there's a thought amongst the people that owns these is that we'll just go ahead and charge as much as we can because mommy and daddy will go ahead and pay for it. And that really hurts, the blue collar, the working class here in the city. Affordable housing is defined as paying no more than 30% of your income to housing costs every month. And as these rents go up by the numbers that Don quoted, that's obviously not happening. That many people are paying more. They're paying 60% of their monthly income toward housing. And that is unsustainable. Something needs to happen. And the bad part about it is that you're on an upward curve now. And when all the new apartments that are being planned are built, and all of a sudden we have a gut of available housing, and these people said, "Oh well, it's time to sell this apartment complex. I got as much out of it as I possibly could. I'll go ahead and move on as an investor into somewhere else." So it's a very difficult situation. There's not much the government can do. You can't pass a local law to change state law. The supermajority in the legislature would never let that happen. So it's a very difficult, and I think that people need to find a solution to this.
But is that even a smart thing to allow for rent control, to allow for price control instead of letting the market? Because what the market has done, I think, is we're now seeing all kinds of apartment complexes being built right now. I mean, they're saying in that same report, they were saying that they're expecting over the next year and a half, thousands of units, and that there won't be somewhere to say, "Oh, I'm going to keep charging more," because people go, "Well, I'm going to go over there."
Well, let's hope that happens. Let's hope that if there's a glut of apartments, that the prices come down.
Absent the state legislature getting involved this situation is not going to be reined in. No private developer, no private owner, no company is going to fairly maintain rent prices if profits are at stake. They're just not. And state law is very, very clear. You cannot control rent escalation. And until the legislature decides to at least curb that to a degree, there's nothing that can be done that I can see.
Right. And we talked about the Chodo North Shore thing last week or the week before that, and the Dominion is saying we're going to go find another place. In that case, the neighbors kind of stood up and said, hey, we don't want it. Is there any way to get to neighbors and say, hey, it's okay. This isn't homeless coming in here. This isn't, vagrants or somebody who's going to be committing crime. Affordable housing. Is there any way that, is it going to be by law, or is there any way to just convince people to allow that kind of thing to be built in other areas other than, say, downtown?
Well,
I don't know if you
city
necessarily
has zoning authority. What you zone the property for can impact how it's developed. So in that sense, that's one of the few tools that the city has for developing, multiple use housing. And of course, the mayor is trying to develop the missing middle part of the puzzle to develop more duplexes, triplexes, and things like that.
Cortney?
I don't necessarily think that a big public outreach campaign is necessary, because it's sort of difficult to educate people on empathy and wanting a variety of housing stocks so that all Knoxvillians can have a roof over their head and have their own piece of the American dream. So, in the case of Chodo, which I think is really important moving forward, that developer didn't want any variances. They were developing that piece of property as was outlined in zoning ordinances and land use development plans. So, to a certain extent, I think it's the responsibility of developers and also local government officials to say, hey, we made these zoning ordinances and these land use plans for a reason. This is part of the plan. It fits in the plan. It's going to develop this community in a way that will support everybody. So we are moving forward. It can be the responsibility of local elected officials, local government officials to say, hey, there's nothing wrong with this. This fits with the character of our community and the community that we want to build.
How do we get into this situation? Because it's not like overnight, 15,000 people moved into Knox County. It was like a stream, it was coming a little bit by little bit. How do we get ourselves in such a shortage?
Well, I think if you refer to that article, that you've been referring to, there has been a tremendous increase in in-migration into Knox County. So it used to be, well, let's move to Nashville, but Nashville's too expensive now, so let's move to Knoxville. So that is generating an increased demand. And like I said, it's a matter of supply and demand now. The supply is limited, and apparently the demand is greater.
Are we in a situation where businesses, like some businesses, are going to have to say, hey, we're going to have to make apartment complexes, even if it's off-site, so that our workers have a place to live?
That's pretty extreme, but Knoxville is just too attractive. That's the problem. People want to come here and live. Knoxville is too attractive. Let's face it. We need to ugly ourselves up a little bit, and that would cause people to not be as quick to move here. But we're really approaching a crisis.
Yeah, and is that like the old company towns from the old coal mines up in Kentucky? Right. Would we now have like an Amazon company town out in Clark County where they're building the distribution center, where they have their own grocery store, healthcare? Amazon apparently can do everything else. Why not build a house, build a town?
We could always house people at the big empty warehouse at Easttown.
Yeah,
that could take several hundred people.
Well, we only have 5 seconds, so we need to wrap it up. I want to thank our panel for being with us, for all their good and crazy ideas, and thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next week on Tennessee This Week.
Views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Nexstar Broadcasting.